We hope you have enjoyed our Dispatch from LA series. On our final episode, we are bringing you the powerhouse women who brought the morning show to life. Kristin Hahn, Mimi Leader, and Lauren Neustadter discuss fighting for projects, being brave when you really aren't, believing in yourself, and the power of hard work. Our moderator is once again Erika Anderson from Slate. We hope you enjoy.
So I just wanted to start, before we get into the details of the morning show, I just want to ask each of you sort of, on a personal level, how did you come into this project?
Okay. Well, I have a long working relationship with Michael Ellenberg, who used to head drama at HBO. And I had just come off working with him on Luck. And I was on my way actually to go, I was just coming off The Leftovers, which he shepherded, and which was a life-changing experience for me, and one of the best next to the morning show. And he said, we went to dinner, and he said, I've got this book, that I've purchased by Brian Stelter, Top of the Morning, and, it's behind the scenes of a new show. And I was a huge fan of Larry Sanders' show, and I love everything behind the curtain and in front of the curtain, and I love seeing what goes on when the curtain is closed. And it was the first time and he said, Reese Witherspoon and Jen Aniston are attached, and I would love you to, exec produce and direct the show. And I said yes, and then I went off and directed On the Basis of Sex. And I've never said yes to anything without reading material. And so it was like just a shot in the dark, but I knew I had this feeling, knowing the work of of Reese and Jen, how powerful this show could be. And when I was doing On the Basis of Sex, that's when the Harvey Weinstein, broke in the news. And it was just kind of a fascinating, this show could be really special. And obviously the Me Too movement happened. And anyway, I'm going on, but it was just, I'm very lucky that I got to be a part of this show.
I feel like our answer could be kind of a team answer. I'll
answer
start,
for me,
you'll
Lauren.
Finished, but I think, I will say for my part, Hello Sunshine we are about to turn 7. And when I came in and started having my conversations with Reese, she said there are really only a couple of things brewing. And one of them is this show that Michael Ellenberg brought to me and Jen. And we've been wanting to work together ever since Friends. And I'm so excited about this, and I really want you to dive in. And so then I called Kristin Hahn, who I knew from when I was a baby
Well,
executive
we got to
at
work
Miramax.
together. We made a movie called The Baster together with Jen Aniston and Jason Bateman.
It was called The Switch when it was
Switch,
released, but we knew
when it was
it'll
released.
be The Baster
Yeah.
forever.
So we already knew each other, and yeah, for myself and Jen, the way we run our company is a little different than most companies. Ours is when we fall in love with something together and we're like, we both feel we can bring something to it, then we dive in. And this felt like such an opportunity to tell a story about women in power, about how power works, about the workplace, gender, what we're all experiencing in the workplace, whether you're in a television show or whether you're working at a bank. So it just felt like a very timely way to take on big social issues, but do it in a fun, kind of soapy, but fun way.
But it's worth noting, I think, that Me Too came after this, right? We had gone out, pitched the show, sold the show to Apple, and then the world changed. And we wound up coming together and saying, oh my goodness, let's shift this accordingly.
That's how our show
felt
works.
Like it was.
Yeah.
It is true. You should share this like psychic situation. No, you should.
Share. We have a crystal ball. We just use it once in a while. No,
it's really our showrunners. Like I feel like that is like sort of this weird job requirement is you have to be a little bit psychic to be a writer on the morning show, because if you go back and you look at the end of season 1, you will notice that they're in the teacup, and behind them is a cruise ship where they're quarantined because of a virus.
But it wasn't even a part of the story. It was just background, basically.
Literally, it was just...
But we set ourselves up for the following season, that became the dealing with COVID season kind of looming over the show.
But it was the crystal ball.
But it happened.
Witchy.
It's witchy. That's what you get when you put a bunch of women on a show.
So you all clearly really love each other.
We do.
You're very close.
Absolutely.
We
Yeah.
do.
We're like family at this point. Truly. Like, I think other than, like, we don't really spend holidays together because we spend all the other days together, but it's a lot of, I mean, it's really a mind meld. And I think, and Michael Ellenberg really is a part of that too, along with Reese and Jen. I mean, we just have such a tight-knit circle at this point that I think we're always in conversation and communicating about everything. And I think, you know, by the time that you've completed a third season and you're approaching a fourth, you really do have a wonderful rhythm and flow.
Yeah, we have a great...
I was going to say, Charlotte Stout, who's our showrunner this
Oh my
season.
God, yes, Charlotte, of
She's
course.
the bravest person on the team because she jumped in after we'd already been making the show for 2 seasons, which our show is harder than any other show, I think. It feels like it. So it always takes longer to make our show. So 2 seasons took like 3.5 years or something. Anyway, point being, Charlotte jumped in. Like, honestly, if you want to research a brave woman, check out Charlotte Stout.
And brilliant.
And she really just became a part of the team and really stirred the pot in such a cool way. This last season was really fun to watch her, you know, really bring it to life.
One of the things is that we have so much fun doing what we do. We are so lucky in that way. We love our work. We love creating stories. We love figuring out how to tell these stories together. It's great synchronicity, and we're very fortunate to have it because we all are kind of these creatures of magic. You know, we love to do it, and it's crazy time. And when you have a group of women, sisterhood really is powerful, and we're very lucky, and that's really a good ingredient.
Well, clearly you've created a community, you've created, you know, personal bonds too, but you've also created a really healthy ecosystem that is generating growth in storylines. You know, there are times where season 2, season 3 doesn't have the magic of a first season. For me, the morning show gets better every season, and that you were able to tee up season 2 with the pandemic, and then, you know, flow into that, and then season 3 being about truth. And you tackled so many really current topics in season 3. Can you just talk, like, what's the secret sauce? How does this, you know, how do you trust each other to work together?
For season 3, I mean, truly, just to echo what Kristin said, she came in so bravely, but also with such precision and clarity. When she, you know, we were meeting with different people trying to figure out who was the right person to join us for the journey of that third season. And she came in and she said, every season has really been about something, and I think season 3 should be about the truth. And it should be about what is the truth for every single character, and then what is the truth in the world, and how can we examine the subjectivity of truth, and how what is true for you,
Yes.
and is fundamentally your truth, is not the truth for me, but how news, you know, really exploits that. And it was really the beginning. It was so,
And also
we all heard it. and
the
thought it
lies
was
we
brilliant.
tell ourselves as individuals, right? So there's like the truth that we're being fed, depending on which news source you choose to trust. And then there's the lies we tell ourselves. And I love that she plays that in kind of an upstairs, downstairs, every which way with Mimi making it all come together as a director, that you see the lies that they're telling themselves. And I love that Bradley and Alex are each other's truth tellers. They're always keeping each other honest through the process of, you know, the chaos that these characters live in. They live and breathe chaos. So you need someone who's your sounding board. And this season was so great that Charlotte brought kind of more of a sisterhood rather than a competitive, you know, relationship between Alex and Bradley. It was fun to see them really have each other's backs even more and be each other's truth tellers.
Yeah,
Right?
and women's agency was a huge part of that, reproductive rights and billionaires and mergers and, as they say, the truth.
It was also nice that there was some romance this season. I think if you're talking about the secret sauce, I feel like, you know, having some more sparks fly was quite delicious.
So you know, in a way, I feel like the morning show is kind of meta. You're a collection of directors, writers, talent producers, creating a show about directors, writers, producers, and talent, right?
Yeah.
Do you bring a different perspective or a different energy, a different ability to tell stories because it's what you do?
It's personal.
It's personal.
Yeah, it's also narcissistic, but yes, it's both.
Yeah. I mean, we feed off each other quite well, and what was the question?
Well, just talking about how the show is reflecting our own experiences in this industry, and I think, look, an example of that is as we are beginning to lay the foundation for the season, we start off in conversation with each other, right? So earlier this week, we were all on a Zoom with each other and with Charlotte, and we were hearing, okay, here's the pitch for episode 4. And we're having conversation about it at the very earliest stage, which becomes the foundation for the conversation that we're having when we are talking about the scripts, when we find ourselves on set, when we're talking about the cuts, that we just start off in conversation and the conversation carries us all the way through. And I think when you talk about the sisterhood and the dialogue and the flow that we have, I think it is because we are always communicating with each other and we care so much what the others think.
And I would say we take huge swings doing it. And I would also say that, it is a drama, but we bring a lot of comedy into it because there's no way of telling great drama without having a huge amount of comedy. And that is part of the secret sauce, having found the tone of the show from the beginning. How do you walk that line? And the only thing I would say where we are different from our characters and our stories is we're not spoiled people. And sometimes, our stories are heightened. They're a little ridiculous. And that's really the fun of it. I mean, I guess we are kind of ridiculous.
We're a little bit ridiculous. And we have the benefit of being able to call anyone in the media world and say, hey, can we have an hour-long Zoom with you and ask you some questions? It's the craziest. It's like, I pinch myself sometimes. We're like, who do we want to talk to? Let's try.
Yeah, when we did the pandemic season, we talked to Chris Cuomo. And we saw on Zoom, his whole little operation when he had COVID and everything he thought of, everything he did. And it really helped with the writing and telling that story in a very real way.
Yeah, and so the journalists that we respect and we follow, we get to reach out to them and say, can you brainstorm with us some storylines, some thoughts, share your expertise, your point of view? And so we kind of pull ideas from different places. We obviously pull ideas from different outlets who are doing stories, and we send each other, we're on a text chain. We'll send each other, what about this for an idea? Let's, we banter ideas around. And but Charlotte is really ultimately the person who says, I think this is the one, I'm going to build a story around it. And we, there's a consensus. And as long as there's consensus, our show is different from most shows in that it really is a true democracy. Most shows typically have a showrunner, and everyone serves the showrunner because it's very helpful to have someone in charge. I'm sure group dynamics, you've experienced this. But on our show, the messiness of it is that it is actually more of a democracy than most shows. There's a small group of people who have to agree on all things, whether it's casting, storyline, sets, whatever, locations. And that consensus, because we all respect and admire each other, is once we reach that consensus, we know we've reached probably the right decision or the best decision we can that we have access to at that time.
I also think it's a very functional thing where we will talk to each other and we will say, do you really care about this? Like, do you deeply care? Or do you not care as much because I deeply care? And I think that is, again, a very functional familial relationship where, if Kristin calls and says, look, this is super important to us, then we go, oh, great, go do it, But if we say, listen, this is a thing, then we also have each other's backs, which I think is really nice. And not that we necessarily have to have each other's backs, but I do think that having, a really functional way that we communicate, because we do, I think, the other side of it is we all care really deeply. And so we are talking about the details. right? It's not just see you on the other side. It's we're reading a script and we're debating something and we had different instincts about a scene. So we get on the phone and we talk about it and we talk about how do we actually, because we also, I think, as producers, we try to speak with one voice so that Charlotte, when we're giving feedback on something, she can see a really clear path to getting to the place that we're talking about going. And I think that requires real communication and synchronicity.
So Mimi, when you were coming into the pilot, as the director, did you see a vision of 3 seasons, 4 seasons? Like how do you set up for the long term?
Forever?
Forever, no. But yeah, well, you come in and you set the tone, you set the color as a director or exec producer, you set the color palette, and that goes all the way from production design to costume design to the lighting design, out in front on the teacup when they're in front of the camera, in front of the world, everything's bright, everything's beautiful, and then behind the scenes, everything's, shadow and light, and showing the complexity. The light was very important to me, that it reflect the characters' messiness, all their complexities. And so that's how you design a pilot and bring something from, that's how you birth a show.
And the music, Mimi, you worked a lot.
Yeah, and it was so interesting. There's just so many different ways to go with music, especially needle drops. And I think a lot about, or I thought about it recently, the main title song. I was sitting with my editor at 10 o'clock at night. We had our main title sequence, and I was playing all different kinds of music against it. And I chose the song that's in there by, I can't remember his name, but he's incredible. And I had a backup, and I brought it to everybody, and
You brought it in the ADR session, I remember.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, and you're like, I'm going to play you a song, and you played it, and we were all
To
like,
picture.
that's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
And he's an incredible British artist, and it set a little bit of the tone for the series, I think.
I also think, just to talk about you for a minute, it was a really important sort of challenge that you faced to figure out the rhythm and the pace of the show in the pilot, right? That you were laying out the blueprint for what our show was going to be. And I think, I don't know if you guys know Mimi's legendary oneers from her ER days, but you've never seen anything like it, right? When Mimi goes in for the oneer, everybody gathers around and gets very excited to watch how it's going to move and what's going to happen. And they're walking up and down and around and, into the dressing room and back out again. It's so exciting. But I do think that this show could have been so many things, but I feel like you really unlocked this propulsive pace, and that it feels there is this soap, but also there's just this movement where that something could come around the bend and it's gonna shock you, whatever. But I think you really introduced that and established it beautifully in the pilot and set the tone for everything.
But it's also,
Yes.
Thank you. But it's also the actors, stepping into those shoes for the first time. Reese speaking her lines for the first time, Jen creating these we're all creating it together, and finding those rhythms are really scary, but you just have to go with your gut instinct. And, it was a remarkable community of beautiful actors. Billy Crudup, forget about it. He's my God, Karen Pittman, and all of them. They're just so wonderful. And every day is like going to a candy store, honestly, because every day you get to work with a different storyline and these brilliant actors. And
editors.
Editors.
Editing in terms of pacing,
Yeah.
also, we are very lucky with editors.
You make the movie or the TV show 3 times. So there's the script, then you remake it, then you make it on the boots on the ground, you film it, then you remake it again in the editing room. And that is a fact. And it's a brilliant experience. And it's a process.
I think that's a really good thing just to mention, because being open to that process, we love to think we're done with something when we create things, but being open to the fluidity of being done, no, we're not done.
No.
nope, got to see it a different way, got to look at it a different way, find your way through it. As a writer, I find myself wanting to be done with the script so badly, like I'm done. I step away and no, you're not done. Like, sit back down. Tomorrow, you're going to have to go back to it, see it a different way, start again. And on the show, we have to do this all the time. You know, you think you've got the answer, and then you realize, no, actually, we have to come up with a different answer or a different way to see it. And being very open to that process, not needing to be right.
Yeah, you have to sit with
helpful.
things when in the editing room. And of course, you don't have all the time in the world. You have air dates, and you have to lock things. And so, but there is that process of sitting with something and making sure it works the first day and then 5 days from now. You know, and you wake up in the middle of the night, you know, making notes. It's kind of insane because it really disrupts your sleep. But, you know, you have these ideas and you have to go back in.
I have a question about confidence. Particularly, it strikes me in season 3, you all tackled some really big topics. And there must have been some pretty animated conversations amongst the three of you, with your team in the writer's room. How did you have the confidence to move forward with some of these storylines in season 3?
Well, we pride ourselves on really trying to make a show about the gray area, which is very challenging because it means our show is trying to have conversations that are uncomfortable, that are by design, are the conversations that people aren't having outside in the world, they're having behind closed doors, right? So we have to challenge ourselves. Obviously, our writers, and Charlotte in particular, really have to challenge themselves, and we do too, to be willing to go there, right? And for example, the scene that Greta had in the restaurant with the two bankers, sorry, spoiler alert if you haven't seen it, you know, that scene, I'll speak for myself, made me so uncomfortable when the pitch came in. I mean, I said no for like 2 months. I was like, no, it's the one thing on our show so far that I don't know if I can stand behind it.
But then the conversation was, that's the point.
That's the point. Right.
Right.
I mean, we have to
So
remind each other
that's
of
the
that.
point.
And it was actually Greta ultimately who had the bravery. And this is where you work as a team, you work as an organism. You know, there was resistance or fear maybe on my part, and other people had the similar concerns. And Greta was like, no, we have to go there. We're doing this. And we were like, okay, Greta, we're following you.
But by the way, I think that is a testament to the way that we talk about things as a community, because we actually were in an open and curious space. And it was like, this is how I feel, this is how I feel, this is how I feel. And actually together we were like, wouldn't we want to find out how Greta feels? Like,
Right.
Isn't that actually the most important, right? And so we did, and that was the most important, right? And that was the thing that was our North Star as we figured out sort of what we were going to do there. But I think that the show should make everybody uncomfortable in different
Right.
ways. That is the point. I mean, I feel like there was a scene in episode 3.
I was just gonna,
Yes, right. So you say it. You say it.
you could say it. Nicole Bahari, brilliant actor.
Yes, and Holland
you know,
Taylor.
And Holland Taylor. Dealing with systemic racism in the news media was really quite a big thing to tackle and get it right. And
We have a wonderful writer named Josh Allen.
who wrote that episode?
Wrote
Thomas
that
Carter.
episode, and Thomas Carter directed it. But just, I know Josh and I love Josh, and you know, that was really raw for him, and it was real. And Charlotte and the rest of the writers and all of the producers were like, yes, right? So that was, I mean, I just think
And we met journalists who told us they've experienced these storylines. The crazy thing about our show is people who have these real jobs in real life reach out to us and say, you guys, that I experienced that. You got it right. You nailed it. And that's the first season when that started to happen, when people from different shows, I won't name names, but different shows reached out and said, it feels like you have a camera on in our control room, in our dressing rooms. Like, what is going on? How did you do that? We
It's
knew
the witchcraft.
It's the witchcraft. We knew we were onto something, but that's, you know, a journalist said to Lauren and myself when we were being interviewed, like she lived through that storyline. And that's what makes our job so cool. We feel so lucky to be able to tell stories that are actually connecting not just entertaining, but connecting with people, helping us have conversations we might not otherwise feel comfortable having. You gave us the best compliment and said our show is like a book club where you want to call your friends and kind of break it down with them.
We love a book club.
Love a book club. Hello Sunshine especially loves a book club. Anyway, that was a great compliment. That's what we want. We want to make things, we want to tell stories that make you want to talk about them and look at yourselves and look at each other differently and maybe, I don't know, learn something, grow a little bit from it.
Well, I was just going to say, I do think that is a thing when we were talking about Hello Sunshine and the idea of Hello Sunshine before it even really was a company. One of the things fundamentally that Reese and I talked about is that the point of all of this is to bring people into conversation. It is not to make people turn their backs on each other, but it is actually to make them think and feel and talk about it. And to bring people into community, whether it's with a book club, whether it's with a television show, whether it's with a film, like how do we bring people together in conversation? And I do think that it's something that the morning show has done really successfully because I think in really unique ways it reflects the world that we're living in and that we always do really challenge ourselves to make the show about something, to make every episode about something that hopefully will make you guys think and feel and pick up a phone and call somebody and talk about it.
So I'm struck when I watch the high mutual regard and the love that you have for each other, the incredible quality of work that you're doing and the substantive work that you're doing for myself, but maybe for other people here, like that's it. That's what I want for my career. In our last few minutes, can you sort of explain a little bit about how you got here or some career advice or how you felt like you've been able to build this really incredible, powerful thing. It's its own thing together.
I'll go first, just while you guys think about that. I'm doing it to be nice. I'd say that the trick for me was always saying yes to experiences and being open to what I could learn from that experience, even if I wasn't sure it was exactly what I wanted to do, right? So at one point, I remember early days, I was probably 20, and a director asked me if I would music supervise his film, Jonathan Waxman. Wow, I haven't thought about that in many years. And I had no idea how to music supervise a film. I was 20, but he couldn't afford to pay anybody to do it. So I music supervised the movie and somehow figured out how to license music and whatever. I didn't want to be a music supervisor, but I knew that experience would give me I would gain some knowledge and learn something. So I said yes, and I just kept saying yes to different kinds of experiences, and I'm so glad I did because it led me to right here. I am living my dream. This is exactly what I wanted to do from the beginning. I know it probably is the same for you too, but saying yes and being open to the experience, I think is probably the best advice I have.
Okay, I'll go next. I did not always know that I wanted to do this. I really wanted to act.
Oh, I remember that. I know that about you.
Really wanted to act.
But you wanted to be a storyteller. Actors are storytellers.
I did. I wanted
That's
to make
why
people,
you're so
I wanted to make
animated.
people feel. I wanted to make people think and feel. I always loved being in plays as a kid because I felt like I changed the room, right? That when you sit down and you watch a play, you feel one way, and then when you walk out of the play, you've somehow been changed a little bit by that experience. And so, oh, thanks. That's nice. So that was the idea, was just to figure out how, when I realized that acting, there's a lot of rejection that comes with acting, and I decided that I couldn't do that for my whole life. I learned that, after going on a lot of auditions out here, and so I had to figure out my way back to the thing that I loved, which was telling the stories and changing the room, and that I really belonged behind the camera. But I think as advice goes, I would say, I was never, I never had the best grades. I didn't go to the fanciest school, but I cared the most and I worked the hardest. And I don't sleep
And you
very
still
well.
do.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't sleep very well, and I read articles in Time magazine about how not sleeping well in your 30s and 40s means terrible things later. So I'm a little bit scared, but
True.
it's true. But I do think, I think I care so much. I'm so lucky. I tell my kids all the time that I'm so lucky to have a job that I love. So for me, it's really been about finding work that I really, really love, and then working really hard and inspiring people around me to also work hard. Because I think when I've worked for people and with people that don't really care and that don't really work hard, it doesn't bring out the best in me. So I feel so lucky that I get to work with Reese and that I get to work with incredible women like Mimi and Kristin and Charlotte, and that we get to do this work and tell these stories. So every day I wake up with renewed vigor, and then I just work really hard until I pass out and wake up in the middle of the night and start all over again.
And she has 2 kids.
She has 2 kids, so there's that.
Everybody on this panel, we all got kids. We're all doing it.
You know, I'll try and make this quick, but my parents used to take me and my brother to the Oriental Theater on Sunset Boulevard, the now defunct Oriental Theater that's now Guitar City or whatever. And there were no ratings then, and there were no restrictions. And I saw every film imaginable. You can imagine, I saw Baby Jane when I was 9. I cried all the way home. It was just the worst. But from there, you know, I got inspired by filmmakers like Fellini, Hal Ashby, De Sica, you name it. And my father was an ultra low budget filmmaker, and he taught me so much. He taught me everything. He inspired me to do to make films. I worked on all his not all of them, but growing up, I worked on many ultra low budget movies where we'd be running through the streets with no permits, shooting, stealing locations, and I've done every job on a set you could do. And I fell in love also with the idea of the power of the lens and the power of telling a story and changing the world. I know that's a big, I do believe that every little story helps move it a little, changes the world a little bit. And the power of film and television, you have the power to change people's minds, to touch them, to make them cry. And I became very addicted to that. And I am so blessed that I grew up in this crazy film family. You know, it was a treasure. And so my advice to everybody, anybody, is speak your passion, speak your truth. Never let anybody tell you can't do it. You know you can do it, you do it. And I've been told many times that I can't do it. And or if a movie fails, I went to movie jail when I made Pay It Forward because it wasn't a financial success. And, you know, if a guy makes a movie that's a $250 million failure, he'll get 3 more. So, you know, you're facing that sort of, I think things are changing, but they still exist. And in the face of failure, I mean, I didn't think I failed, but in perceived failure by box office failure, you're put into this box. And how do you get out of the box? It was hurtful, it was painful. Well, you just fight your way out of it and put one foot in front of the other and try and make the films and try and tell the stories you want to tell and never let anyone tell you you can't do it.
That's good, Mimi.
Yeah.
And yes, I love that. Resilience. I just want you all to know we've all fallen on our faces many times. So just, we might look great today, but but we have fallen down. In fact, I fell down last week.
Yes, you did. I saw it. I was like...
I literally fell down, guys, at the Chateau Marmont. And it was embarrassing. And you know what? But I'm old enough where I was like, I don't care.
That's right.
I don't care. I'm fine. I didn't break anything, and I'm fine. But I literally and figuratively have fallen down, as has Lauren, as has Mimi, and you just get your ass back up.
I will also say I was told point blank by a boss that I didn't know how to produce early in my life. And don't believe the stories that people tell you about yourself.
If they don't ring true.
It did. It rang true because I believed it, right? I bought into it. So I would encourage you guys to examine the stories that you have been told about yourself and your willingness to believe those stories and the impact that it's having on your life. And what if you told yourself a different story? Would that change things?
Yes.
Yes. Well, I'm so sorry that we're out of time. I could do this for another hour, but on behalf of all of us, thank you for getting up. Thank you for not listening to the other voices.
You.
Thank you for continuing
Thank
to
you,
make great
everybody.
work.
Thanks for having us. Thank you.
If you enjoyed this episode, subscribe and leave a review on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. To stay up to date with In Her Words, join the conversation by following Women in Entertainment on our social channels and subscribe to our weekly newsletter at womenandentertainment.com.